think I know who might have given the order. Mum.
We're at war! We're gonna take those fuckers out one by one!
They thought Plan B was the backup, the safety net, the last resort that would save everything. But the smoke that now hangs over Antwerp tells a different story, one of failure, betrayal, and a city sinking into silence. In MobLand, when Plan B goes wrong, there is no Plan C, just consequences. The sun never really rose over Antwerp that morning. The sky looked bruised, dull gray with streaks of black smoke rising from broken buildings. Last night's chaos still echoed in the streets. Shattered glass crunched under the boots of a street sweeper who didn't ask questions. A stray dog sniffed around a burnt-out car near the port. And everywhere you looked, the city seemed to hold its breath. What was meant to be a silent cleanup turned into a street war. Plan B was supposed to erase evidence, shut mouths, and buy time. Instead, it opened wounds. The harbor district took the worst of it, a warehouse explosion that lit up the river like a torch. Locals say they saw boats speeding off into the mist minutes before the blast. No one knows who gave the final call. Everyone has a theory. Civilians, now, avoid the main square. Businesses that used to open at dawn stay closed. People whisper about men in long coats, seen moving in and out of alleyways at night, unmarked vans. Dead phones. Even the police are quiet. One officer was found unconscious in his car, bruised but breathing, with a burner phone in his lap. No badge, no explanation, and above it all, that heavy, silent smoke. It doesn't rise, it lingers. Like a warning that the storm isn't over, it's only waiting. In the ashes of Plan B, not everyone vanished. Some stayed, some watched, and a few, the most dangerous ones, began to move. Quietly, like ghosts with unfinished business. Luca was one of them. He hadn't been seen since the raid. Word is, he slipped out through a service tunnel under the North Rail Yard, bleeding and limping but alive. Now, they say he's hiding somewhere in the Red District, living in the back room of a closed jazz club that once belonged to his uncle. The place has no lights, just shadows and memories. And Luca. He isn't resting. He's planning. Then there's Freya. She used to run numbers for the Greco family, back before the street war got personal. Now, she's back at the docks, where the sea smells like oil and secrets. She's not working for the Grecos anymore. She's gathering names, making calls, digging into who really pushed Plan B, the name she keeps hearing over and over. The broker. No one knows his face, just his voice, cold, precise, and always one step ahead. Freya meets with two former smugglers in an old shipping container. They say the broker had eyes inside both families, that he fed false intel to spark a turf war, then vanished. Left them to tear each other apart. Now Freya's trying to put together what's left of the old network. She doesn't want revenge. Not yet. She wants answers. Elsewhere, someone's watching them both. A man with a scar under his left eye. He drives a rusted black sedan, always, parks 2 blocks away, never steps into the light. He's not police, he's not family. He's something else, maybe cleanup crew, maybe a loose end. Whatever he is, he's waiting for someone to make a mistake. In Antwerp, when the smoke clears, it's not peace that follows, it's movement. Small, careful, silent, like the city itself is trying to heal, and failing. The dead don't speak in MobLand, but their absence is loud by morning. 10 names were confirmed. 3 were soldiers' expected casualties. 2 were civilians caught in the blast near the fish market. 1 was just a kid, 16, working his first shift at a bakery next door. And the rest, ghosts now. Men who won't get funerals. Just closed coffins and cash payments to families who won't ask questions. One funeral did happen. Quiet, rain, falling like nails. Just 3 men stood by the grave, dressed in black with their hands folded, saying nothing. No priest, no prayers. Just a single rose dropped on the coffin and a lighter flicked shut. That was it. That's how it goes when the war is still hot. Mourning gets replaced by silence. Inside the Greco mansion, doors are slamming. Nino Greco, the younger son, has been yelling for hours. He wants names, action, revenge. But his father, old Don Silvio, just sits by the window, staring out at the garden. A garden his wife once kept. She's gone now, not dead, just somewhere safer. Even she saw the storm coming. Across town, another kind of meeting is happening. A mother cries in her kitchen, watching news coverage of the explosion with the volume muted. Her son was a courier. The last call on his phone was to a burner number, now disconnected. She doesn't cry because she's weak. She cries because she knows. And because she can't tell anyone. Antwerp isn't just bruised. It's bleeding. And nobody's cleaning it up. The city's old power lines, the loyalty between families, the code of silence, the underground deals are breaking. The old rules aren't being followed anymore. Plan B didn't just fail, it cracked the foundation. And now, everyone's waiting for the aftershock, when empires fall. They don't crash, they crack. Quietly, slowly, like a wall splitting apart behind old paint. And on the 6th morning after Plan B failed, 2 cracks in Antwerp's underworld tried to seal themselves, not with trust, but with necessity. A secret meeting was arranged, no headlines, no phones. Just 2 men, each carrying the weight of their family's futures, meeting beneath a forgotten part of the city. An old cellar, buried under a burned-out cafe no one visits anymore. The smell of wet concrete and mold filled the air. A single bulb swayed overhead, flickering like it couldn't decide if it should stay alive or give up. On one side of the table, Marco Silvestri Greco blood, but smarter than the usual muscle. On the other, Gaston Van Vliet, once a butcher's son, now a quiet killer who'd risen fast in the Belgian crew. No guards were allowed, no weapons visible. But both men knew, if anything went wrong, no one would leave that room. They didn't speak at first, just sat in silence. Marco tapped his thumb on the table. Gaston stared at the cracks in the floor. Outside, somewhere far off, a dog barked once and stopped. Finally, Marco leaned forward. "We both lost people," he said, "but someone gained. That's the piece we're missing." Gaston nodded. This wasn't just heat, it was a push. Someone wanted war, then watched it burn from a distance. They both knew who it might be. The name had been whispered all week, the broker. No face. No verified sightings. Just orders sent through middlemen, payments left in lockers, information passed like poison. Neither side wanted to say the name first. Not in that room. Marco offered something small, a name tied to an arms deal that went wrong. Gaston returned the favor, a new smuggling route near the south border that had been strangely cleared days before the explosion. It wasn't much, but enough to suggest this war hadn't started with them. Still, there was no trust, only time. They agreed to a pause, not a peace. A few weeks to regroup, rebuild, watch. A handshake followed, slow, cold, reluctant, not friendship. Just survival. As Gaston stood to leave, Marco reached into his coat. Gaston's hand twitched toward his belt. Tension locked the room for a full second. But Marco only pulled out a photo. Folded, grainy, worn. It showed a man stepping out of a black car, face turned slightly. But not enough to be clear. "This is the closest anyone's gotten," Marco said. "We think it's him." The broker. Gaston stared at the image. Said nothing. Then nodded. Once and walked out. Above the cafe, morning light finally broke through the clouds. It touched broken windows, stained walls, empty streets. The smoke was clearing, but the city wasn't healing. It was waiting. From a rooftop across the street, Luca watched. His face unreadable. He knew about the meeting. He knew what was said. And he knew something else too. Something neither Marco nor Gaston had figured out yet. This wasn't the end of the war. It was the part where the board resets, the pawns get replaced, and the real players step forward. Because in peace isn't real, it's just the silence before the next betrayal.